Bi'idhnillahi Azza wa Jal, in wrapping up this lesson, we want to speak about some of the most important points or reasons behind uh, the journey or the traveling to seek knowledge, and some of the greatest fruits that they reaped from their journeys. Firstly, was to, as we explained, is to hear the hadith and to learn knowledge. Hear the hadith from the people who possessed it, from those who memorized it, and to get its explanation and its understanding. Secondly, was to verify what they already heard in their lands or in their countries. To double check and to make sure that what they heard was correct. And to search and to investigate for any hidden glitch or defect. Thirdly, as we mentioned before, was to seek a shorter isnad and to get closer to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Fourthly, was to meet the great memorizers and the great geniuses of hadith and to review knowledge with them and to sit with them and practice and review what they already heard from them previously. Fifthly, as we mentioned once again in brief, was to ask about the different narrators and reporters, al-jarh wa ta'dil. They would go and they would seek knowledge from them. What is the ruling or what is the case with this man named Fulan ibn Fulan? He's in our country, he narrates us hadith. Okay, this person narrated that hadith. Is this authentic? Do you ever have you ever proved that he was a liar, and so on and so forth? And lastly was to spread the hadith that some of the students, and when we say students, a person could be a scholar of hadith, but when he sits with another scholar of hadith, then he's a student. To spread some of the hadith that they may have already had and pass them on to others, and to give one narration 3 or 4 different chains or different versions, to spread knowledge and to give the different roots of one narration or more than one narration. These were from the main benefits that they got from traveling in search of hadith. And as we said once again, this is bikhtisar. This is a very short, summarized version. If this wasn't the case, for the lack of time, and we want it to be abridged and easy, bi'idhnillah, if Allah wills and allows, this is something which it is very unfair for us to speak about a topic of such great importance and such virtue in such a hasty, quick manner. However, that which we can't do 100%, we shouldn't leave the entire thing off. Play it. What were some of the books that were authored with regards to searching or traveling to seek hadith? There were some books that some scholars wrote specifically on the topic, and there are some books in which there were chapters or sub-chapters which spoke about traveling in search of hadith. Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah ta'ala, as we said before, who died in the year 463 of the Hijrah, he has a book called Al-Rihlatu fi Talab al-Hadith, traveling or the journey to seek hadith. The book has been printed and edited and is in wide circulation, is famous, in which he mentioned several narrations from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu from the companions, from the tabi'een, speaking about the virtue and the excellence of traveling, some of the manners, some of the etiquettes, and some of the different interesting and intriguing stories with regards to seeking hadith, and some of the rules of narrating, and so on and so forth. As for the books which speak about the travel or the journey to seek knowledge of hadith in sub-chapters, then we have the book of Ar-Rama Hurmuzi, Al-Muhaddith Al-Fasil. We have the book of Ibn Abdul Barr, rahimahullah ta'ala, Jami' Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadlihi, and most books that speak about the etiquettes of the student of knowledge or the virtue of knowledge, they talk about ar-rihla, they talk about traveling. And that is because, as we mentioned to you already, it was something which was staple. It was standard. It was something that it was well known during the time of these people that you had to travel to seek knowledge. Tayyib, this is, as we said, this is something which is brief. So, bi'idhnillahi azza wa jal, we're going to wrap up, and in the next lesson, inshallah, we will speak about how the hadith were preserved during the lifetime of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how they were recorded and they were written down during the lifetime of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is in contrast to what many people falsely believe or think, that the hadith were not compiled, they were passed on by oral tradition for over 300 years, for over 200 years. Then they just popped up and became books with chains of narration. This is incorrect. During the lifetime of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu we have countless evidence or pieces of evidence that show us, that prove that there was recording of hadith during his lifetime. Not all of the hadith, however, some of them and a good portion of them, which was the cornerstone for which will come later on. So in our previous lessons, as a wrap up or summary, we mentioned the definition of the term sunnah and the necessity of understanding the different meaning or interpretation of that term according to the different fields of study in Islam. The fuqaha, scholars of fiqh; the usuliyin, scholars of legal theory; the muhaddithin, scholars of hadith; the ulama of al-aqidah, the sahaba, so on and so forth. Then we mentioned how the companions of the Messenger of Allah والسلام, and how the tabi'een looked after the sunnah, and how they preserved it, and how they respected it, and had a great deal of regard and veneration for the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah والسلام, and how what were the main points in that. As they passed it on, they asked about it, they criticized and repudiated the one who opposed it, they used harshness against those who were obstinate in not implementing it, so on and so forth. Then we mentioned traveling in search of hadith, the reasons behind it, the origin of it, its importance, so on and so forth. So in the next lesson, by Allah's permission, we will speak about the recording of the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah during his lifetime, and then afterwards we will go on when he died in the time of the companions, up into the tabi'een and the generations that came afterwards. So we'll stop here and we ask Allah by his beautiful names and by his perfect attributes to make us true students of hadith, to make us those who love the Messenger of Allah والسلام, more than ourselves, more than our families, more than our wealth, more than all of mankind, and to be those whom he gives the divine success to implement the sunnah, to act upon the sunnah wholeheartedly, not one section or one angle, but to take the sunnah as a whole and to make it our model of our lives. بإذن الله عز وجل. هذا صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد والله تعالى أعلم.